I tried to get my manager fired. So this story takes place in 2016 and the start of 2017 when I worked in retail. I won't be naming the place that I worked at, but I basically filed a formal complaint about my manager while I still worked there. And I have all of the documents here. So I made a complaint to head office and then they interviewed and investigated the manager. The first point I made in my complaint was that the manager intimidated me and made me cry multiple times. The manager obviously denied this, and he also said that he had never seen me cry, which is a complete lie. My next claim was that I thought he was basically sexist. He basically let the male workers have time off for things like football and sports activities, but when it was something like drama or acting, for me, he wouldn't let me have time off. I tried to back up my claim by asking some of my male friend colleagues to back me up on this, because they had told me in private that the manager does let them have time off for football. So my friends agreed to back me up here, and then when they received the email about the investigation, they chose not to respond. Next in my statement, I went on to tell a story which I've since made TikToks about, where the manager saw that I had a sanitary towel in my bag. Basically, when you leave at the end of your shift, you normally get your bag searched and some of your parts of your clothing as well to check that you haven't stolen anything. But anyway, I remember him screwing his face up in disgust when he saw this pad in my bag, and he made a comment telling me to properly dispose of it, because around the same time when he saw this in my bag, the female toilets were really dirty. So was this comment him trying to make a dig at me for leaving the toilets dirty just because I had that in my bag? The sanitary bin in the women's toilets were overflowing at this point in time, but that wasn't any of our responsibilities. There was someone whose job it is to come into the store and change the bin, dispose of it, clean it. So him having a meeting with all of the females about this dirty bin, I thought was just a bit strange. But anyway, in his interview, his response to this was that he has no memory of this happening. You know when retail staff have to upsell you things at the checkout? They'll ask you if you want something added on that you just don't want. Well, I felt like my manager singled me out when I hadn't sold enough of those extra add-ons. I remember him pulling me aside into the warehouse one day to basically interrogate me about why I hadn't sold enough. Again, I tried to get someone else to back up this claim, someone who witnessed this happening, but when she got the email, she ignored it. Funnily enough, the manager does say that he remembers this event happening. He then showed the investigator a message I had sent him a few days later, where I was basically messaging him to let him know, look, I have sold some add-ons today. I'm proud of myself. So he then took this as a conversation of encouragement. No, I just felt like I had to keep him updated when I actually did sell some add-ons so that I didn't get told off again. And then the manager says in his interview that there's never any pressure to upsell anything. That's crazy. I also said in my complaint that the manager just generally scares me. After I made the complaint, I still had to work with him, and in my opinion, he started to treat me even worse. He made me stand by the front door of the store in winter in shorts selling things, which is something he'd never asked me to do before. A lot of the things that I complained about as well are just normal things that's expected of retail workers. It's normal to be asked to stay an extra few hours after your shift. But in this case, because of how scared I was of him and how intimidating he was, it just felt like I never had a choice and I always had to just agree with things. Obviously, if I thought my shift was over and I wanted to go home and I wanted to get away, he always asked me right at the end of my shift, as I'm about to leave, if I can stay an extra 2 hours. But I always felt like it wasn't him asking, it was him expecting me to say yes. I felt like I couldn't say no. Anyway, in his interview, he said there's never any pressure to say yes to extra hours. I said at the end of my statement, my ideal outcome, and I quote, my ideal outcome would be for the manager to treat everyone nicely so I don't feel scared to go to work. And apparently the manager was taken back by my allegations, and then he showed the interviewer an article that I wrote about him being a really good manager. For context here, he knew that I had a social media following and he wanted more people to come to our store. So to promote the store, he begged me to do a post post on Twitter, and it was a picture of me standing outside the front of the shop with the address of the shop and everything, telling people to come, like, this is where I work. Surely that's dangerous. So that's the only thing that I can think of where I would have publicly said, like, oh, come to my store, I've got a really good manager. Like, I don't know where I wrote an article. But again, anything I ever said about him being nice was obviously just because I was scared of him. Why would I go around saying he's a really bad manager? It says in the document, in conclusion, having considered all the facts and evidence, I can find no evidence to substantiate your claims. So it basically ended there. Obviously, after all of this, I still had to work with the manager, so he was just very off with me and it was really awkward. So a few days after the case got closed, basically, I told him I was quitting. You usually need to give like a week or 2 weeks notice before you quit a job, but I'm guessing he just wanted me gone anyway. So I remember I just went into his office and I said, today's my last day, and he was just like, okay. The end. Follow for more story times. Someone catfished people while pretending to be me. This is going to be a long story, so get ready. So in 2023, I had a message on Facebook from a random guy, and he like apologized for things that he did during our online relationship. And I was so confused because I didn't know who this guy was. And he told me that we were in an online relationship for years, and this was news to me. So then he sent me the Facebook profile of the person that he was in a relationship with. The Facebook profile started in like 2016. I only found out about it in 2023. So here's just some very interesting things that they posted while pretending to be me. I can't even read you some of these. 12th of March 2016 as well. I would have just turned 16? No, I would have just turned 17. So very strange in itself. But someone who was like friends with the account was commenting like to stop posting the weird things. Then we bring in this character called Samantha. The account was posting like dark things like, I seriously can't do this, about to drop everything and everyone. And this Samantha person was either the same person like running two accounts, or it was genuinely someone that like believed they were friends with this Holly Lang person. You honestly can take your 13-year-old There's some really strange things that they posted that I can't even read out. See, this Samantha person again. Like, I think Samantha's a real person, and this Holly Lang person just clearly got off on, like, making people upset or, like, panicking them and stuff. I care too much but feel worthless and not good enough for anyone. I feel like I don't make others happy. I'm failing and shouldn't be here. See, and then Samantha said, never push me away. I hope tonight I get so drunk I crash. February 2016, I would have been 16 and I'd never had alcohol at that point. I'm gonna have to censor what this says, but it's talking about SH. Maybe my dad was right, I am a mistake. Again, I'm gonna have to censor what the end of this says, but that's crazy. And there's people commenting on all of these, probably like, no, we're here for you. Like, there's so much of this I'm gonna have to censor. Okay, a lot of other things that I can't read. Ugly picture, ugly me. Well, that's quite rude. Puberty, why did you make me ugly? Use someone else's face for your account then. They're now talking about like ending things. And there's 44 comments on this. This cop is behind me and What? This cop is behind me and I have nothing to cover up the blood or Jack. Samantha said, Holly, me and Becca are in my room. The neighbor has already called the cops. I feel like I'm watching my own story time right now. The boyfriend said, Holly, I know you don't want to hurt that baby. If you go through with this, he will. I don't know what that means. And Samantha is saying that I was present with her in her room. So I'm assuming Samantha's not a real person and it's also the same account. And the boyfriend is like begging, and this is a real person, and I can't imagine like how traumatizing this must have been, because he thought this was a real person, his girlfriend, like a real scenario happening. And he messaged me years later to apologize for what happened in their relationship. I think he was innocent. I'm just gonna say it now. That's all the screenshots I took, but I know there's so much more on this account. But yeah, please, please be safe on the internet. You literally never know who you're actually talking to. It's all so crazy, but let me know if you want another part because I could dive into this deeper.